Good afternoon. We're going to call the Justice and Public Safety Committee to order. The second item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The third item is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion? Moved by Duge, supported by Drolet. Any discussion on the agenda? Please vote on your iPads. All votes are recorded and it passes. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes for the June 6th committee meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Drolet. Are there any discussion for the minutes? Seeing none, please vote on your iPads. Is it 10? Are there 10 people? All votes are recorded and the item passes 11-0. Item number 5 is public participation. Are there any members of the public who wish to address this committee? Seeing none, we'll close public participation and move to item number 6, which is the department recommendations. 6A is a budget amendment from the Sheriff's Office. It's a fund position, 1 Deputy School Resource Officer, and we have Captain Dave Daniels from the Sheriff's Office.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Sheriff's Office is here to request an additional position for the Macomb Township and Chippewa Valley School District. We actually call it the liaison officer. However, it's also referred to as a school resource officer. The Macomb Township has partnered with the Chippewa Valley Schools. They're requesting that the Sheriff's Office add this 1 additional deputy position. It will be assigned to the school as a liaison resource officer. This will be Chippewa Valley and Macomb Township's 2nd deputy assigned to the schools. They will provide additional safety and security for students, faculty, and staff. Outside of the school year, that position will be provide services for the township. This request to add the 1 new deputy position will begin on September 1, 2018, and will carry through to August 31st of 2019. The total cost of this position of $118,161 will be split equally between the township and the district. With the addition of the cost, the revenue from September 1 through December 31 of 2018, there will be a need to amend the sheriff's budget in the amount of $39,387. The costs associated with this position are based on the current contract pricing prepared by the Finance Department. We are seeking approval for this new position and a budget amendment request. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Captain. I have a list, and the first speaker is Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. I think you just answered my question. The need to amend by a third has to do with just the timing of the rest of this year's budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. What will that deputy do in the summer months? How will that be rolled into the normal road patrol routine? Because I know there's a set programmed, and Macomb Township got the biggest, I think, of anyone in the community. How is that person going to roll into that?
So specifically for Macomb Township and for Chippewa Valley Schools, the 9th grade, I call it Career Center, the 9th grade education center that's there right next to Dakota is where they have all of the kids in the district attend summer school. So during that 5-week program, 5 to 6 week program, he's assigned to 9th grade education to watch the kids that are in summer school. After that, there's other things that if we had something in the township that we needed a deputy to attend, we have events, specific events that are happening that normally we'd have to pay overtime for, that deputy be there for backfill for overtime for that positions. But specifically for Chippewa Valley, they do run a summer school program in the 9th grade education center, and he'll be assigned to that. That's what our current school resource officer is doing that right now.
I mean, my question really, it's really whatever they're doing, they're paying for it, so I really don't mind if they're going to watch one classroom of kids for part of the year and watch a whole school district over the other part of the time. So, I mean, it seems like there's going to be a lot of downtime that wouldn't be there normally. But
Dakota is the biggest high school in the state of Michigan. Seneca is the biggest middle school in the state of Michigan. So what's going to help with this additional position that we're looking at as well is they're going to be able to spend more time in the middle schools as well as the high school. But it's a legitimate question. There's going to be plenty for him to do. But yes, if he has the time, he'll be resourced outside of the to the substation and rather do other things that our deputies would be assigned to do, whether it be traffic control, special events, things like that.
Well, it's very good. I'm glad that they've stepped up to do it. It's the right thing to do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Majek.
Thank you for coming. I'm just curious, you already have an existing deputy in the school district?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
What are their normal job functions at the schools during the school year?
So what he does on a daily basis, he shows up to work at 7 o'clock. He gets there, his vehicle is parked at the substation. He checks in, goes to the substation, gets on his computer there, logs in, and he
Which
goes.
substation are we talking
Macomb,
about?
I'm sorry, the Macomb Township substation.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
he's based out of the Macomb Township substation on 23 Mile Road.
Okay,
Then he'll go to Dakota High School, he checks in, he has his contacts there on a daily basis, through the administration. He also makes sure that if there's anything going on in the school, his main priority is to be visible for the kids, especially when they come in and the evening when they're leaving. He is very active with social media, being on social media, following kids on Twitter, Facebook, things like that. If say something's going on, what's currently is been a benefit for our current liaison officer. He's been in place for 4 years, and he's had the ability.
that long,
to
4
esta-
Years?
Yes. To
I did not know
establish this
that.
Well, we've had this since 2008, the
Okay.
resource officer, liaison officer, this relationship. But this current liaison officer, which helps us, he starts in the middle schools, and as the kids go up in with the schools, they realize and they recognize him, they're more comfortable, open lines of communication with him. It's important that we put the right person in place here as well. He's gonna have to communicate with the kids.
Right.
He's gonna be approachable, he's not gonna be, so that's the type of individual that we need to get. But on a daily basis, he interacts a great deal with the administrative and staff and the counseling schools.
What would be one of the serious things that have happened these last couple of years
Well-
that you could talk about?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that we all think of obviously is school
Right.
shootings, right?
So what he's been able to do is,
obviously.
when he follows some of these kids on Twitter and Facebook, he's been able to identify some threats that before they've become a reality. And he's been able to identify the players in it. But he's also been able to identify what's a viable threat, we'll say, and what's not a viable threat. And what's unique and what's difficult about this position for our deputies to remember is, even though the schools might have a different protocol and might have a different thing, the way they think they react to a situation, we still have to take the position at the sheriff's office as a law enforcement, and we have to take the appropriate action, whether the schools or the parents, the administration might not always agree with it. That's a fine line we have to, so picking the right person for that is absolutely critical. But that relationship that you establish throughout the years is what helps us along that way.
Okay. And what other school districts do we have officers at, besides this one? I see the next item is what, Chippewa Valley, I
Oh, no,
believe?
this is the only school district right now, currently the sheriff's office.
Okay,
has
are
a
there
liaison
other
officer.
school districts that are contacting you at all to have a deputy?
We have not been contacted by any
No.
of our contracted patrol areas to add a liaison officer.
Okay.
We have not.
All right, thank you very much for
You're
your time.
welcome.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Cap.
Good afternoon, sir.
I think this is going to be something that's very common in the schools where they have a liaison officer, and I think it's a tremendous idea. I guess my question is there any special training that these officers need or should have before they get into these positions?
That's a good question. There is. The reason why we're pushing to get this done is so we can get the training provided for them. The training that they have to attend, there's the state police officers training. They offer training. And there's some training that we send them through to the schools. So there is specific training, but what we need to get them into is the mindset of, okay, this is protocols of Chippewa Valley, this is protocols of Romeo, but okay, this is what we do at the sheriff's office. And if I'm speaking frankly, you remember who signed your check? So this is what we need to get done over here. But no, there is very specific training that they have to go through. And even now, more so with response times, things like that, as far as the events that happen in different schools, our deputies are trained as first responders to that type of event, if that's what you're speaking to. So that's really, we, as a rule, as an agency, everybody gets trained on that.
Thank you. The other thing is just a statement, being a father, children, and a grandfather, I'm always concerned, but it relieves my anxiety personally to know that my grandchildren attending school have a police officer there for just in case. So we appreciate you and appreciate them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I don't have any other speakers on my list. Are there any others that didn't make it to my list? Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, Captain, I know these guys go to training. Is there somebody else in the bullpen warming up in case this guy gets sick, something happens to him, to replace him with someone that has the same knowledge?
Absolutely, no, sir, we don't have anybody trained up right now. This is what's gonna be helpful for us. So once we get these, if this gets approved here and then we get approved by the full board, we will post the position. And when we post the position, I'm sure we'll have more than a handful of candidates that we can choose from. When we add that, what we will do is we'll make sure we have some candidates that'll be available. But
Okay.
typically, these positions, once they're filled, they stay in the schools for quite a while.
You answered it.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
It's moved by Drolet. Is there support? Supported by Romano. Please vote on your iPads. This is to forward to finance, correct? The item passes 11-0. Thank you, Captain. Are you on the next item? We also have 6B, a budget amendment, the Sheriff's Office, a fund position, 1 deputy school resource officer for Washington Township and Romeo Community Schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Moved by Commissioner Brown, supported by Commissioner Romano. Captain Daniels.
Again, like and similar to the previous conversation we just had. However, what's new about Washington Township and the Romeo Community Schools, this is the first liaison position that we've had with Romeo and Washington Township. What's unique about this is Romeo High School right now is situated on 32 Mile Road. They are projecting to open the high school on 29 Mile Road near Powell, if you're familiar with the area. I believe it's going to be early 2019 is projected time. So the school's going to move from, actually I shouldn't say for sure when they're going to move, but they are moving in the very near future from the 32 Mile Road location in Romeo into Washington Township. The Washington Township supervisor also had approached us earlier with the Romeo Community School District superintendent with this desire to add a school resource officer. The sheriff met with Mr. O'Leary and with the Romeo School District superintendent, and again, we came up with the same scenario where the school and the township will agree to pay for this position. They'll split the cost evenly, same and like and similar with the Chippewa Valley and the Macomb Township relationship. The only thing different now is that we'll have to set up a separate fund org in finance for us to receive payment and for the cost revenue to be shared. The same cost revenue will be the same manner as the Chippewa Valley and the Macomb Schools Districts, is the $39,387 budget amendment that we're requesting for 2018. Again, that's for the 1/3 time frame for 2018.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Commissioner Douget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is, a lot of this has been gone through. I think it's a good idea. Question, are you seeing a problem with drug use in the northern area of the county? Because I see that we have it in the southern area of the county.
I think there's drug use throughout the county. I don't know if there's any more than any less than northern part of the county.
Really?
Yes, sir. I would.
Well, it could be. Do you see an influx of stuff like fentanyl and so on and so forth?
The fentanyl problem is, the opiate problem is with the heroin. Yeah, we see that, absolutely. That's a trend that we see. Whether it's,
So that's countywide, no
That's
matter.
countywide.
It doesn't matter where.
I would say absolutely, sir.
Then I have no problem. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You might see a few
Thank
more
you,
grow-ops
Commissioner
up and down
Douget.
the county.
Are there any other speakers on the list? There's been a motion and support to forward this to finance. Commissioner Sauger, it was already done. So we'll forward this to finance. Please vote on your iPads. The item unanimously passes. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you all.
Item number 6C is a budget amendment for the Sheriff's Office for the funding for the mail screener. Captain Zimney.
Good afternoon. Sheriff's Office is requesting a budget amendment for the purchase, or actually the acquisition of a asset for the County Sheriff's Office of a mail scanner. Currently, the county jail suffers, or we were plagued with a lot of contraband coming in through the U.S. mail. A lot of it has to do with Suboxone strips and some of the other drugs that are commonly used in the street. Our officers do a very diligent job trying to identify and locate that within the mail, but it's very difficult to do. And through our research, we've come across a company that has a mail scanning device that's been utilized throughout the country that is very successful in identifying these drugs, and it's strictly used in correctional facilities. Through contract negotiations in 2017, when the Sheriff's Office negotiated an extended phone contract for inmate use at the jail through IC Solutions, they afforded us a $130,000 technology grant to be utilized for future use in some kind of application that would benefit the Sheriff's Office. So through the research and this ongoing issue of contraband control within the jail, the decision was made to move forward and identify the best means, which would be a mail scanner. So with that, I am requesting that the budget amendment for the acquisition of an asset, because the funds will come directly from the phone vendor, IC Solutions, and they'll pay directly to Chem Image, which is the provider of the scanner, to acquire that asset to the county. So there needs to be a budget amendment per Finance Director, Mr. Schmiegel. Questions?
So if we could just hear from Finance real quick. Steve, so what will happen is that the money will never come through the county, correct?
The cash never comes through us. It goes from IC Solutions to Chem Image. We receive the equipment. We don't have a budget for the expense in the budget. So we have to record this asset on our books. So we have to have an expense budget and a corresponding in-kind revenue.
Okay. And Captain, that contract's already been approved from the IT contract?
From the phone service, yes. It was November of 17. It was signed by this board.
Okay. Any discussion or questions on this? Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. I just want to, just for housekeeping, amend it to include the approval of the acquisition of the scanner, so we've got it nice and tidy, that the board approved this.
Is there support for that? Supported by Commissioner Lucido. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Commissioner Romano?
I thought it was on. Maybe I'm not.
No, it's maybe I'm not.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to know who was smart enough to include this on the contract that they pop for $130,000 grant. That's what I want to know. Somebody had to be.
Yeah, I kind of was behind that, to be honest with you. I was looking for the scanner before the contract was drafted, and I knew what the cost, for the most part, what the cost of the scanner would be, and I thought it would be a good acquisition for the county, for the Sheriff's Office to have this piece. So I proposed it, and they accepted it.
Great deal. Thank you so much.
I'm not to toot my horn, but you asked me,
Excellent.
that's where it
Good
came
job.
from.
Great
so.
job. Thank you.
Commissioner Brown? Commissioner Kleinfeld? Take your name off.
Thank you, Chair. Just generally speaking, not really necessarily specific to this, but because it's an unusual thing, but the contract provided for a technology grant, but when the county gets grants, isn't it usually still that the board approves money spent from those grants on a certain dollar amount, generally speaking?
You're correct.
Okay.
This one's just a little different because it's kind of a cashless, there's no cash exchange between the grantor and the county, but in essence,
Okay.
we're getting a flow through.
All right, but we approved a technology grant as opposed to the purchase. He made
Correct,
an amendment,
right.
and I just wanted clarification. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sauger?
Yeah, Captain, there's one question I got in my mind, because you always got a goofball out there. Is there anybody or any groups that are anticipating, have you heard, they're gonna file a suit because you're screwing around with the inmates' mail?
No, this scanner's been in production for a number
Okay.
of years.
But
and
you
it's
got
been
nobody
tested.
who's,
No, we haven't. Yeah,
not
we
yet,
have not.
okay,
It has not been challenged in court, no.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question. In terms of grants, this is sort of, they just left it really vague as technology grant, and I guess I'm wondering what the original intent was for. Was it for possible upgrades that would come about, or is this just a dollar amount that was thrown into the contract and you can use at your discretion depending on need?
Exactly.
Okay. That's a great grant. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other speakers? All right, on Commissioner Brown's amended motion, supported by Lucido, please vote. Item passes 11-0. Thank you,
you.
Captain.
So that was the amendment. Should we then vote on the main motion, or is it?
No, there was no main motion, so Commissioner Brown
I'm
just
sorry.
made a motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is a presentation from the JJC. Rhonda Westfall.
Hi, good afternoon. Start by thanking the JPS Chair and Committee for the invitation to come and talk about the Juvenile Justice Center for a little bit. I brought along with me our Deputy Director, Bob Whitehead, and our Treatment Manager, Gabrielle Biernat, in the event that there's questions specific to them, but thank you. The presentation itself, I understand that the board would like to hear a little bit about what it is we've been doing at the facility, maybe in some of our recent improvements, but I can start by asking if there's any specific questions or a specific area that you'd like me to focus on.
Just a general update, and then I
Okay.
think when you're through, we'll ask some questions
Okay.
if people have general areas. Commissioner
Alright.
Brown, did you?
Maybe a little history how it evolved. I mean, there's been a lot of changes
Okay.
since the beginning, and, you know, you've taken over your contract with St. Clair County that prior to most of these people coming on the board, and where it's at, and bed spacing and all the rest, so
Okay,
it's all part
okay.
of the big picture.
Okay. I can start by just briefly describing the Juvenile Justice Center and the overview of the services we provide. So we provide both short-term detention, and then we also provide long-term residential treatment. All of our kids, of course, are ordered through the court. The majority of our population comes through our local family court, and I know Dave and Nicole are here today as well to provide any information to the committee. So that distinction is we house kids in short-term detention pending further action of the court. So we may house someone who's picked up on an offense where the court is processing and making some decisions about that youngster, and we're detaining them in the facility pending an outcome. We also provide long-term services where the court, after exhausting less restrictive local services, has determined that this youth needs to go into a residential setting, somewhere where it's more secure. They've exhausted everything else less restrictive. The court then wants them to go into a long-term situation for treatment services or therapeutic services. So we're providing both of those types of services. The one area of focus for the center over the last year or two has been a significant focus on the treatment program and changing the way that we're approaching the kids in treatment. So historically, it's been more of a correctional approach with the kids. So we made a transition working with our local court to start providing services that more therapeutic in the approach and more evidence-based. Rather than a homegrown program, more correctionally based, we determined that a trauma-informed approach would be more suitable for the kids that are coming in because of their backgrounds and histories. So that's what we've done. It's been a huge undertaking for the facility. Outside of the private sector, we're one of the first public sector facilities in the state that has really went to this extent to look at evidence-based trauma-informed interventions for kids. Of course, it's been an adjustment for our staff because it's a significant change. It's really about looking at working with kids, recognizing the trauma, and using interventions to initiate long-term change for them, as opposed to teaching kids how to behave within the confines of the facility. It's our hope that when they leave the facility, those changes are going to be more long-term and more substantial. So with that, several years ago, we did a reduction in force on our staff. We really sat down with our court and took a look at what we're doing collaboratively and what we can do moving forward. Part of that change was we discontinued a contract that we had with clinicians and hired our own clinicians. And that included Gabrielle, who is a trauma-certified therapist. She has a background in trauma therapy. And we hired several therapists on staff who are also trauma certified. In order to make those changes, we wanted to have that strong clinical team in place. So we did that. With that, Gabrielle took a look at every intervention that had been provided and researched all evidence-based interventions that the research is saying are working with kids, at-risk kids. So she spent about 6 months doing that. At that point, in these meetings with the court, we then started admitting kids back into the programs that we had made these changes on. One of the other things that we did is all the staff had extensive training and development in those areas, because it was, not only did they need the skill development, it was a significant change for them. So we wanted to make sure the staff were fully prepared to then utilize these interventions with the assistance of Gabrielle and her treatment team. That's been going really smoothly. It takes a bit with changes like that. You're changing a culture, if you will. So we've been able to stabilize our population over the last couple years in both treatment and detention. It's been positive, I think, and I think it's something that Macomb County can really be proud of, because it's not an easy thing to do. That trauma-informed approach really, I mean, we have to, as a culture within our facility, acknowledge and recognize that that's part of what's going on with these kids' behaviors. It's not just them being defiant or oppositional. There's more going on. And if we keep approaching it as they're just choosing to be bad kids, that is not going to be effective with them. There's more going on. One of the other things that we did is we really enhanced the family component. So our families are all in family therapy now. We have parenting classes. We have support services for them. As long as they're willing to participate and get in there, we've got plenty of services. Our court has really worked hard to encourage parents to ensure that they're participating and coming in for the family services that we're providing, so we've been able to collaborate with that. Another thing that has been a focus the last couple years is collaboration with other organizations and agencies within Macomb County. Not to say that there wasn't some of that, but we have really expanded that. Rather than working in a vacuum within the facility, we are reaching out to other agencies in a grata way. These are things that we're not paying a lot for, if at all, and getting resources from the community. An example might be local Macomb County Teen AA. We're starting those groups in the facility. We are working with MSU Extension. They're doing some nutrition classes with our kids and social skills classes. So we have really emphasized that idea of collaborating with the community, because these kids are going to continue to be part of this community, and their parents are going to continue to be part of the community. So rather than sheltering them, we're trying to get them back out into the community in a safe way. So when we have the kids for a period of time and we've evaluated and determined it's safe for the community and them to start gradually going back into the community, or having the community come in and work with them, we've also had a big emphasis on that. So those are a couple of the real significant changes. With regard to overall services, we started transporting the kids last year, because the family court is no longer connected to the facility. They moved downtown here. And so we hired another transporter. The board was generous in approving that additional position. And so we're transporting all the kids downtown for hearings. That's went pretty seamlessly, with the exception of a parking situation that we had to work on recently that we apologize for. But, so that has went really smoothly as well. We had that little snafu. I'm sorry, Commissioner Lucido. So that is went, so that's went really smoothly too. I mean, the kids we're able to get the residents down here safely and securely, and that has went without any major incidents or anything. So that's went well too. And that was a significant shift, because the facility and court had been connected for, I don't know, 40 years. And the staff, we have 2 wonderful transporters who've been able to do that in a way that's worked for the court as well. So we've had a really, really positive year coming off of the heels of that reduction in force and everything that happened in 15. Our population is remaining consistent over the last couple of years. Not as high as it used to be years ago, but I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I know that, nationwide, there's that emphasis more on community-based services. We do continue our contract with St. Clair County. That has went seamlessly. It has not caused us to hire more staff. It hasn't been it's basically they're using bed space that we're staffing anyway. So that we did raise that per diem just a tiny bit. I think a 3% increase on that daily per diem rate last year. But so that's been going well. So I tried to touch on just a couple highlights, but if there. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
What is the what capacity are you at the facility in terms of bed space?
The total capacity at the facility is 140 beds. The facility, at least since I've been there and the years leading up to that, since it was built, that facility's never been staffed for over 80 or 90. So when our population started reducing a couple of years ago, we reduced staffing to match that. So right now, we're sitting at an average of about 50 residents. But it was built for 140, never been staffed. I think it was for over 80.
Changes in the way we treat our children are different than they were back when it was built. So it's a
Yes,
reflection
it
of that,
has.
right?
It has, yeah.
Martha T. Berry gets rated by state agency in comparison to their peers. Do you get similar ratings in your facility by any agencies that come in and look at the care and quality and based on your incidents of, any incidents that happen at the facility? Is there any ratings that go on there, but looks over your shoulder from the state agency? Probably is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Annually, we have a licensing audit that's done. We haven't had a citation under a licensing audit for 5 years now. Even prior to me coming on board, Mr. Seidelman was doing a nice job.
We never had many problems over there.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was a long time ago.
So that happens annually. Part of that is fire and health inspection. We have a kitchen inspection for food service 3 times a year. We're also, under the Child Protection Act, so if there's any incidents of any kind of allegation, we're mandated to report that, and the state would come and investigate that. Because the kids, there are times when they make claims that something has happened and we haven't looked into, and thankfully we haven't had anything like that substantiated. But we do have that annual audit each year. So every 2 years they make a determination as to whether or not the license should be renewed. And then they have the off-year evaluation as well.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, bear with me. I'm trying to break this down to as basic as I can. So a minor gets picked up by local law enforcement. Then they go see a judge, correct? And then how does the process work, I guess, is what I'm asking. From the point the minor gets picked up to getting to either JJC, juvenile court, how does that
You know what, I'm
all
going to have
work?
Nicole join us and answer that, okay? She's the expert in that area, and I think.
Forgive me, I'm just curious of the whole
No, she'll explain it better
process.
than I will.
Good afternoon, I'm Nicole Falds, I'm the juvenile court administrator. Excuse me, I just ate a mint right before I stood up here.
Of course.
I know. So if a youth gets picked up for an offense by the police, there are 2 ways it can be handled. The majority of the time, the child is not detained. The child, the police takes a report, they get returned home to their parent.
Sure.
The police fill out what's called a petition. It's like a charge, and that gets filed with the juvenile court. We either divert or set for a pretrial within 5 weeks. And they may never, ever end up in her facility.
Okay.
For more serious crimes, in order to end up in the JJC, the police officer call an on-call juvenile court referee. So we have somebody on call 24 hours a day, an attorney referee, who would take the call and decide whether it was serious enough to authorize detention or not. So those calls come in all the time. They would authorize detention, send an email to the JJC, kid could be brought in at 1 in the morning, whatever, and the next day the child would have a hearing in front of the referee or the judge, and then they would determine at that time whether to release them or continue them in the JJC pending a pretrial.
Okay, thank you, because that's what I was wondering. I know you guys were here last month, and
Right.
I was wondering kind of the population of kids that get to what point. So what population, I guess, do you see of the whole minor population, does the JJC end up with at the end of the day, would you say? Out of, you know, in a given year, what, is it 50% get to you, 40%?
From the court?
80, yes, 80%?
It's fewer than 10 actually
Okay.
now. So today we have 41 kids in the facility. 27 are there for short-term detention, 14 are there for long-term treatment. Every month we collect stats of how many kids are under supervision. So at the end of June, we had 664 kids that were under some type of supervision, whether it's for diversion, consent calendar, or on probation. So of those 664, 41 are in the facility. And then we have 7 that are in an outside residential placement. 4 of them are sex offenders, and there isn't sex offender treatment offered yet at the JJC. And then 3 of them were sent out because the boys unit is full right now for residential.
Okay. And the last question, thank you for bearing with me, commissioners. I guess the repeat rate, the kids that go to the JJC, go back into the community, what's the recidivism rate? Is it?
I can tell you that the youth that come into our short-term program into detention, sometimes we see them in there 8, 10, 12 times. I mean, they're just,
Okay.
it's almost a revolving door for some
Okay.
of these kids. Others, they come in, you never see them again.
Okay.
In treatment, we have seen some recidivism come through. I could not quote those numbers for you. I can say that I think there is a significant amount of work that goes on with families. I think the more that we can do with families, the more
Sure.
success we're going to see with that.
Absolutely.
And that is something that we're emphasizing right now and working on. I know the court's working with us on that, but it is higher than we'd like to see. But we see kids come through. One of the things that I have found is the kids that are being placed are the most severe cases in the community.
Sure.
And normally that includes the most severe problems with the parents as well. So we are putting less kids in residential in Macomb County, and I think that's a good thing. So we would see 8, 10 years ago, a lot of kids being placed in residential. Kids who were marginally having marginal problems in the community, and we would see a significant amount of success with them. There wasn't a lot that needed to improve with regard to that family situation and that child. Now, most of those kids are being treated in the community with the court, successfully with the court. What we're seeing is the most severe cases who 10 years ago were recidivizing, probably significantly.
Okay.
So we're working with a really tough population, and if we can emphasize a couple areas and keep moving with this trauma-informed approach, I think it's going to get better. But it's high. The recidivism is high.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi.
I guess my question is, what constitutes a juvenile? Age 17 and lower, 16 and lower? What is actually a juvenile?
It would be up to 17.
Up to 17.
years, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about, Ms. Falls mentioned 14 long-termers that you have. Long-termers, sounds like they're, so my question is, so they're 17 when they're in, they turn 18 while they're there, they're long-termers, what do you do with them?
If someone came into the facility, into the long-term program and turned 18, we would continue to provide services for them until which point it was determined that they had either successfully completed the program or the court made a different determination. So we have had residents that have turned 18 in the long-term program. But, go ahead.
Can I
No,
just-
no, yeah. No.
Just, it is, if you're 17 and commit an offense, you go through the adult system. So it's currently under 17 as a juvenile. However, if you're already under our jurisdiction, let's say at 16, we can keep you until your 19th birthday. So if you're already under our supervision, we can keep you until your 19th birthday. There are some cases through if they're committed to the state under this thing called Public Act 150 for more serious crimes, there are certain offenses where a child could be extended, their supervision could be extended to 21. But we can maintain jurisdiction over a kid until their 19th birthday as long as we take jurisdiction before they're 17. There is a movement in the state, though, to raise the age to 18 and older being adult and include 17.
One more question for Ms. Westfall, if I may. So you have them in at 17, you'd probably get them in as young as,
We're licensed as young as 11 years old.
okay, so are these separated in the facility? Are they all housed in a dormitory, 17, all the way down to 11? I mean, how do you segregate the kids age-wise? Or do you?
We do not segregate by age.
You do not?
We do not. We don't normally, I mean, it would be very rare to get 11, 12, even a 13-year-old. Most of the kids are falling in anywhere from about 14 to 16. Not to say we wouldn't have a 17-year-old, but like Nicole said, if the offense is committed after 17, they're going to end up over with the adults. So someone could be 16 and a half, have an offense, come into our long-term program. No, that program is about an average of about 12 months long. So it would be very unusual, very, very unusual for someone to be 18 in the facility. If we had an 11-year-old in the building, which again, since I've been there, I don't know that we've had an 11-year-old, probably a 12-year-old. We're cognizant of that distinction in age. The staff would be cognizant of that. We might make a decision to take that 11-year-old and put it in a unit somewhere other than with a 17-year-old. It would be case by case, but as a matter of protocol, we do not have a system wherein we separate age. If we did that, I mean, we could have a unit with 2 kids in it.
Do you experience any difficulty because of the age difference between I don't want to call them inmates, between the juveniles?
Well, also at the facility, and this might help, is unlike maybe the jail, we have direct supervision. That means the staff are directly supervising a youth. That means that if the kids are in the day room, for example, this room, they're not even going into an office and walking away from them. It's that direct, constant supervision.
And it's just, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you have to be very neglectful and walk away from those kids to have something happen. And that is, it is like etched in the brains of our staff. That direct supervision means you're in this room with these kids. And then we do have the 1 to 10 ratio. So at no time would you have more than 10 kids under your direct supervision.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
You're very
Madam Chair.
welcome. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for coming. Actually, one of my questions had to do with what you were saying. You may not segregate by age, but do you by sex?
Yes.
Okay. So throughout the day, the boys and girls aren't working together, or just is it sleeping where they're separated?
They're not living together, and they're not traveling through the facility together as a group. So our girls would be segregated. Girls and boys would see one another possibly in the dining hall. But again, sitting at separate tables across this big room from one another.
Okay.
They do not house together. They do not sit in classrooms together. We do a little bit of mixed kids in our residential program.
Okay.
And that's because of, it's part of that treatment approach.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
And then you touched upon another thing. I was wondering how they were educated while they were in the program.
Okay, we have, our school program is provided by L'Anse Creuse Public Schools.
Okay.
They've been in the facility since the inception of the facility.
Okay. So
almost
teachers
50
come in.
years, yeah. We have classrooms right on site. We have educators on site and paraprofessionals. There are support staff for the school. It's literally a school within the facility.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they went back out to go to school, or that sounds great.
Yeah.
You guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Commissioner Sauger.
I was just curious from prior when I was over there, if you get a juvenile, 14, 15, 16, whatever, committed the crime of murder, then when they used to get authorization from the circuit judge to house them at the county jail on a separate bullpen. You know, and they had a babysit for them, but that's the way it was because they wouldn't keep them over at the youth home. Is that the way it still is now, or is there a different way of doing it?
Until such time it's determined that they are actually waived in the adult. Oh, I'm sorry. If we have a juvenile who's been charged with something like capital murder, until such time it's determined that they would be waiving over to the adult system, because of their age, they would be housed in the juvenile facility.
Because we used to keep them at the county jail, in the bullpen downstairs by themselves, give them their little toys to play with, but we had to keep them there. That's changed now?
That has changed, and as you can imagine, that's created and has historically created huge problems for jails in terms of liability.
Okay.
Yep. So
Enough
that
said.
has
Thank
changed,
you.
yes, yep.
Thank you. My list isn't refreshing like it should. Are there any other speakers on the list who wish to speak? Is there a motion to receive and file? Well, before I do that, do any of the other guests that you brought with us Nicole, do you have anything, or David, or Gabrielle, anything that you want to add? Come on up.
Can I just add that I would love.
Will you come up to the microphone so we can?
Careful what you wish for now.
I know. I know. My name's Bob Whitehead, by the way. I'm the Deputy Director. I've been with the Juvenile Justice Center for 34 years. So I would like to extend an invitation to each and every one of you, anytime, to come over, and I would love to give you a tour, explain the programs, show you the building, and what we do. Please do, please.
We used to take our meetings on the road. Is there a spot in the classrooms that we could use when the kids aren't using it to have, maybe have a meeting?
Training room. We have plenty of room.
Have a perfect facility to have
We do.
a board meeting if you want.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Our office will work with you and coordinate a good meeting. We'd love to come over.
Thank you.
Anything else, Nicole? Do you have anything, David? Gabrielle, anything? Okay. Is there a motion to receive and file? Moved by Commissioner Leonetti, supported by Romano. Please vote on your iPad. Okay. All right, the iPads aren't working. Can we do a voice vote? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. And then we'll schedule a meeting over at your
That'd be great.
facility.
Thanks again for the invitation.
Thank you. Item number 7B is the jail bed replacement project update. I've attached a copy of an email from Deputy Executive Deldon just talking about the status of the jail bed project. Is there a motion to receive and file that? Moved by Myjack, supported by Kraft. Any discussion on that email? All those in favor, please say aye. Are there any opposed? The item carries. Item number 8 is new business. Is there any new business for the committee? Seeing none, we'll close it. Move to public participation. Seeing no members of the public, we'll close that. Moved by Commissioner Duje, supported by Commissioner Kraft. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, commissioners.